In 1971, a woman in Spain found a face staring up at her from her kitchen floor. She scrubbed it and it only got clearer. Then, when her family ripped up the floor, they found human remains buried underneath. But the faces didn't stop. They multiplied, changing, moving, and watching. Some said it was a haunting, but others believed it was far stranger, that these weren't ghosts, but thoughts burned into stone. This is a very strange story of the Bélmez Faces and the unsettling mystery of thoughtography. Hi, and welcome back to Wicked Mysterious. I'm your host, Danny, and I explain all types of mysteries from aliens to paranormal stories to unexplained phenomena. If you would like to support me on this channel, check out the links below. I do have merch and some PDF guides on seeing auras or astral projection. I also have a conscious creation course coming soon, so check that out if you're interested in working with me. And memberships on YouTube are available, and that gives you access to a semi-private Discord community and early episode drops before everybody else. So with all of that out of the way, let's get to today's mystery. This episode I had covered back in the old Wicked Mysterious days as one of the very first stories that we covered. And this story is one that, when I look back, I think this is what hooked me into mysteries and the paranormal. This story came from a book that my dad had, and it was called Strange Stories, Amazing Facts, and it was published in 1976 by Reader's Digest. So I have a copy of this book myself, and it details unsolved mysteries and strange phenomena. And I remember as a kid opening to the page about the Bélmez Faces and seeing a picture of one of them, and it absolutely terrified me as a kid. So props to my dad for both terrifying me and opening my mind into thinking beyond. So in 1971, in a house in Spain, there was a 52-year-old Maria Gomez Camara and her son Miguel Pereira and her husband Juan. On August 23rd, the family began experiencing something very strange. Maria Gomez Camara noticed a stain on her concrete kitchen floor, and over the next few days, an image of a human face began appearing. As Maria scrubbed the stain, the image became more and more clear. At this time, Maria began to feel ill, but she attributed this feeling as symptoms of a fever. Over the next few days, her son Miguel and her husband Juan removed the floor with pickaxes. When they did, they discovered human remains beneath the floor. The remains were believed to be skeletal and incomplete, and several skulls were missing from the bodies. Some sources say that at least 5 skeletons were found, and reports claim that the bones were very old, possibly from a burial site dating back centuries, and that they were not in coffins, suggesting a non-formal or forgotten grave. The bones were removed and given a Christian burial in a local cemetery. This did not stop the phenomena, though, and faces began to appear on the new floor poured in place of the old one. The town of Bélmez is old, like really old. Some buildings date back to the 17th century or even earlier. The skeletons may have come from unmarked graves beneath what was once a church or maybe a cemetery, but local oral history includes a story of a mass family murder in the area where 5 people were killed in the 1600s. Some believe that the Bélmez house sits near or on top of the location of this crime, and that the remains could be connected to this mystery. They did replace the kitchen floor, and on September 8th, a new face showed up on the same spot on the new concrete. So at this point, the mayor of Bélmez became involved, and he told the family that they could not destroy the floor again. And instead, the new face was cut out of the floor and placed behind protective glass on November 2nd. In less than a year, the house became a tourist attraction known as La Casa de las Caras, or the House of the Faces. I hope my 800-day streak on Duolingo served me well there. New faces appeared about once a month during the first year. Faces appeared, disappeared, and then reappeared, and often changed appearance and also changed in front of the eyes of witnesses. The faces seemed to reflect both Maria's physical and mental health, but the faces did not stop when she died in 2004. In fact, new faces emerged in the house she was born in after her death. However, these faces have been attributed to hoax. The police began investigating. A group led by a skeptic also investigated, though their findings were not made public, and the leader of the group has kept his records personal. The Civil Guard, the oldest law enforcement agency in Spain, also investigated because they were interested in maintaining public order. An officer of the Civil Guard lived across the street from the Pereira family home. The police were present in the home every day and were present during investigations by other sources. The faces caused so much civil unrest that the government pressured a tabloid paper into publishing a false narrative that the faces were in fact a hoax, titling the article, "The Mystery is Solved." Germán de Argumosa was a parapsychologist. Parapsychology is the study of mental phenomena which are excluded or inexplicable by orthodox scientific psychology. So this would be things like hypnosis, telepathy, or mediumship. And he began investigating in February 1972, at which point the government confirmed that they could not prove the faces as a hoax. Argumosa agreed to study the phenomena and write a report of his findings for the governor. He partnered with Hans Bender, and together they collected EVP samples and even got a video of ectoplasm. I'm going to play a short clip of the EVP here, and I'd love to know what you think of it. It is quite creepy. So Argumosa was pretty unlucky with his research because multiple of his experiments failed. In June 1972, he sealed the floor with plexiglass so that no one could get under it, and an image still appeared but disappeared before a picture could be taken. They tried again with a plastic sheet, which had to be removed due to health concerns. There was no details on what these health concerns were, but I would assume it was mold or something like that. His partner Bender gave instructions on how to unseal the floor, and despite his instruction, they neglected to have a notary present. Nevertheless, after the room was sealed for the night to dry, new faces were found on the floor the next day. Photographs were not able to be developed, though, because the developing agent was bad, so they tried to video record the faces but ran into technical issues there too. In 1973, a group of 150 students visited the home. 30 of them, including Bender, witnessed 3 faces appear and disappear, and these finally did appear in photographs. They ended up building the family a new kitchen so they could continue a normal life while investigations took place in their home, and the faces also appeared in the new kitchen. Then, in September 1973, they finally succeeded in completing an experiment. They sealed the room, appropriately this time, in the presence of a notary and the students and a TV film crew. Faces changed and disappeared, but the photos were of bad quality and no conclusive evidence could be gained from them. One theory is that Maria had the ability of thoughtography, which is the ability to burn images from the mind into a physical surface, usually film. And this is also what Argumosa believed, that Maria Gomez Camara may have been capable of thoughtography. Despite the skeletal remains, the EVP recordings, and the town lore involving the 17th century familicide, he kept circling back to one unsettling idea: that Maria didn't discover the faces, she may have created them unknowingly through a deep unconscious psychic process. Even Hans Bender, Argumosa's partner, witnessed the formation of the faces himself. So let's imagine for a second that thoughts, real, emotionally charged thoughts, could burn themselves into the environment. That trauma or obsession could leave visible scars on concrete, just like it might on the human psyche. And that's what thoughtography suggests. And it could explain not just the Bélmez Faces, but a lot of other so-called hauntings too. Arguably, one of the most famous cases of thoughtography was the 1960s case of Ted Serios, a guy known for his drinking problem, but also for his very strange gift, burning images from his mind into instant Polaroid film, entire buildings, people, even alien landscapes, just by concentrating. He supposedly did this with just his brain and a mysterious gizmo he held up to the lens. A psychiatrist named Jule Eisenbud from Denver took interest in this. He didn't just interview Ted, he launched a full-blown 3-year investigation. He performed over 80 sessions that produced hundreds of photos. Many were blank or blurry, but then some of them weren't. Some showed recognizable images, the Parthenon, buildings no one could identify, even text in foreign languages. Serios would sometimes shout, "Now," and a photo would develop with what looked like an architecture slide or a strange scene never previously loaded into the camera. To skeptics, it screamed hoax. Even magician James Randi and others argued Serios must have hidden tiny transparencies or used sleight of hand. But Eisenbud and other researchers tried to rule that out. Photos were taken under supervision, and in many cases, Ted was thoroughly searched. They even used a locked camera controlled by the researchers, and sometimes he still got results even then. But he had some quirks. He said he needed alcohol to loosen his mind. He'd sometimes fall into trances or act manic, and while Serios never made money from his ability, he also never proved it under conditions that satisfied hard skeptics. His success rate wasn't super high, but it was consistent enough to make people uncomfortable. Eisenbud published a book titled The World of Ted Serios, Thoughtographic Studies of an Extraordinary Mind. It remains one of the most controversial parapsychology texts ever written. Some see Serios as a psychic pioneer, but others see him as a clever fraud. Either way, the photos exist and no one's fully explained them. And there are actually some other famous cases of thoughtography. One occurred from the 1970s to the 1980s by a self-proclaimed psychic named Masuaki Kyoda in Japan. He claimed to project images onto film in a similar way that Serios, but with much more consistent results. He was tested by researchers in Japan and also by Western scientists during his trips abroad. In Japan, he had success under semi-controlled conditions, but under strict laboratory controls, such as when he was tested by the Society for Psychical Research in the UK, he failed to produce results. And skeptics believe he may have used sleight of hand or pre-exposed film, similar to the accusations against Serios. His abilities were featured in several books and documentaries at the time, and he remains one of the most well-known thoughtography claimants in Asia. Another example is Eva C. Carrière. She was a famous medium during the spiritualist movement in the early 1900s in France, and she was known for ectoplasm manifestations and spirit photography. So while she wasn't a classic thoughtographer like Serios, her seances did include photographic evidence of some sort of materialization, including images that appeared on photographic plates during her trance states. In some of her photos, faces or religious icons appeared on blank plates. Many of these photos were later suspected to be frauds involving magazine cutouts or double exposures, but still she's often mentioned in this category of psychic imaging because of the mental or mediumship origin of the visuals. And then there was the skull experiment, which is fascinating. This was from 1993 to 1998 in England. The skull experiment was a 5-year series of seances conducted by mediums Robin and Sandra Foy in the UK. They used various devices, including sealed Polaroid cameras, to attempt communication with spirits. Several images appeared unexpectedly on undeveloped film, including faces, symbols, and lights. The researchers claimed these were not due to tampering, though skeptics were unconvinced due to the lack of strict scientific oversight. Some parapsychologists believe that the phenomenon was mental projection or telepathic interaction with the film, which would fall into the thoughtography category. A lot of these faces that show up on film or especially in the case of the Faces of Bélmez, are attributed to pareidolia. This is the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous pattern. The House of Faces in Bélmez is actually a quite popular tourist attraction, still open today. Hey, this is Editing Danny. I just wanted to add in here that when I was researching this and looking for pictures of the actual tourist attraction, there's a bunch of Google reviews that say the faces are actually still appearing. And it looks like nobody lives in the house, but there's a number on the door that you can call, and Maria's son, who is still alive, will come let you in the house. And he points out all the new faces that have appeared. And then I guess they disappear and new ones come out. So just wanted to add that in there. I thought that was kind of interesting. I want to know what your thoughts are on the Faces of Bélmez. Did Maria burn these images into the floor with her mind? Do you think Ted Serios was legit? I want to know what you think. And let me know of any other weird psychic phenomena you'd like to see covered. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so that you never miss a mystery. Thank you again for watching, and stay mysterious.